What is going on, peeps? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. And if you clicked on this video, you might be interested in hearing my thoughts on what it's like to drive this M3. I've had this car for well over a year now, about 18 months or so, and I love it. But I want to talk about more specifics about what it's like to actually own this car. We're going to talk about kind of the usual things, but we're also going to talk about just kind of general sort of takeaways that I've gotten from driving a car like this. So number one, and the first thing that I think about when I think about my E92 M3, I have a 2011 competition package, Alpine White, 6-speed, and I have some mods to it, but we'll be getting into those in just a second here. And the biggest thing that strikes me when someone asks me, you know, why I like the car, or why do I want to drive it a lot, or whatever it happens to be, is the emotion and the way that it drives and the way that it makes me feel. This car genuinely feels like the perfect car for the road for me. It fits like a glove, it sounds good, it gives you that turn in, and it just has that perfect like emotional aspect to it. Part of that has to do with the engine, the S65 engine, and the fact that it revs to 8,400 RPM. Of course, you can get it tuned to bump it up a little bit more if you really want, but revving it up to 8,400 RPM never gets old. So in regards to how this car drives, it's sporty, it's dynamic, and it's fun. However, I will tell you one thing that it really does get old is the low-end torque. Or really, I should say, the lack of low-end torque. And this car is kind of notorious for that. Lacking torque, has 400 horsepower or so, and maybe, right around, 300 foot-pounds of torque. And the thing with a high revving car, a lot of times, is that the torque band, doesn't come on until much later. So it's not as usable, kind of, putzing around town, which kind of sucks. That's why, when you drive a car that's like a turbo car or something, it's like, holy crap, it has all this power down low, and my car feels like a slug when you're at 2,000 or 3,000 RPM. So that's why you have to drop it down several gears when you're trying to go. But yeah, the low end torque really sucks in this car. It's something that you have to get used to. You have to drive it a little bit differently. I have the 6-speed manual. I would absolutely recommend it to everyone. However, I will tell you, it's probably one of the weakest parts about the E90 M3. And what I mean by that is it's a little knuckly. It's not as direct as it could be. First to second is, a little knuckly, a little notchy. It doesn't go into gear that easily, especially when it's cold. And it's just annoying, when the car isn't warm, you have to really make sure you get it into second gear. And it seems like BMW transmissions are all kind of like that. But this one in particular, the E90 and E92 and E93, they're kind of known for the knuckly and notchy transmission. Let's get on to something a little bit more positive that I like about this car, about after owning it for 18 months. And the one thing that I'll tell you is that she really quick, my exhaust mods that I get questioned all the time. I have test pipes paired with the OEM muffler mod. So I have the stock muffler, but what they do with the muffler mod is they cut out the pipes and they replace them with solid pipe. The pipes that go through there are muffled, and if you replace them with solid pipes, it kind of gives you kind of a more direct sound. I would say if you are worried about the car being too much as far as a sound perspective, just go with the OEM exhaust mod. It gives it a little bit more bite, but it's absolutely not obnoxious. But it is definitely noticeable when you're on it, especially when you get on the throttle. Other people will notice that you're accelerating abruptly. The stock exhaust setup sucks. It's absolutely awful. You can't hear anything. The mufflers baffle everything, and you honestly get more engine noise than exhaust noise, and it's just awful. When I was looking for this car, you know, I test drove a couple of them that were completely stock, and to be honest with you, I actually almost second guessed myself just because it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like anything. You know, it's an M car, and I'm growing to really like the exhausts that are proper. But I will tell you, I'm in 6th gear, 50 miles an hour, and it's extremely livable. This setup, the test pipes, if you're wondering, the test pipes paired with the OEM exhaust mod, I think is perfect. You can absolutely daily drive it. As long as you're under 3,000 RPM, it's fine. You know, it's noticeable, and the cold start's pretty loud. But when you get on it, she screams. So just be ready for that. Here's kind of a silly one that I hope you guys can appreciate. And I think this car's pretty practical. It's easy to drive. You can fit 4 people in it. And yes, 2 people can fit in the back of this car. It's very deceiving with the shape of the car. But I've had passengers that are adults, full-grown adults. It doesn't have a ton of room, but they can absolutely sit back there for half an hour, and there's no issue. You know, longer trips, obviously it's not ideal, but compared to a lot of other coupes, there's definitely like a decent amount of room back there given what it is. So that makes it more practical. The trunk makes it practical. You can fit a couple golf bags if that's your style. I can fit a bunch of detailing buckets back there. If I ever need to like go to a buddy's house, I can throw 3 buckets, tripods, all kinds of stuff. So it's very practical. I'm almost never worried if everything will fit. I'm normally not putting a ton of stuff in this car, but generally speaking, I never have an issue, and I'm never that worried about it. All right, so let's talk about the interior. And this is something that I actually did sacrifice when I bought my car. Obviously, you can see from the camera that I have the gray inserts. So I have the black interior with the gray inserts, which was only offered in America. I don't know why it was offered at all, because I'm not really a huge fan of it. And I still hate it. I still don't like it. When I get in this car, it doesn't excite me. I'm just not a huge fan of it. You know, it has it on the sides, it has it on this armrest here, and it doesn't look good to me. It looks kind of weird. I know that black interiors sound really boring. You have a white car with a black interior, but that's just my style, guys. So I know I mentioned about the shifter earlier, but one other thing about this car being kind of that analog, you know, more, you know, direct experience is it's a little bit noisy when you're going, at least with the manual, into, you know, first gear to reverse and to neutral when you're maneuvering. So I actually ended up texting one of my buddies, I think it was Adam, who has an E92 M3, a white one as well. And I'm like, when I go from, you know, reverse to neutral to first, you know, just maneuvering around, you know, to park it in my garage and whatnot, there's like this weird like clunking noise. You know, it doesn't sound broken or anything, but it sounds like there's a pieces hitting each other or something. It sounds kind of weird. He's like, no, don't worry, like everyone has that fear, you know, everyone has that concern when they first buy the car, and you know, it's kind of weird if you're not used to it, but you know, it's completely normal. And I'm like, okay, cool. So essentially what I'm saying is, you know, obviously this is a little bit more mechanical of a car, it's a little more analog of an experience, so you kind of probably have to take on a little bit more of those things, like when you're maneuvering around. You know, when you have a newer vehicle, they kind of try to button everything up and hide it. This one doesn't try to hide it as well, although it, you know, it's extremely solid. Alright, so let's get to the elephant in the room, and that is regarding reliability. Oh my god, you have an M3 or you have a BMW, bring my wallet, blah 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 blah. You know what's funny is I've spent less money on all of my BMWs than I have my Jeep or any other car I've ever owned. You know, part of the reason is I've had relatively lower mileage ones, and I will also tell you, I've also purchased ones that are not notorious for having issues. My 335 was an N55 motor. It had, you know, 25,000 miles on it, so no issue. You know, I had a tune, I had exhaust, I had a bunch of fun stuff done to it, but I didn't completely beat the crap out of it. And you know, I did the regular interval changes for, you know, maintenance. And same thing with the M3. I have a tune, I have exhaust, I have some work done to it, but you know, I do oil changes regularly, and you know, everything's been fine. I haven't spent any money doing anything to this car other than mods and regular maintenance, which is amazing. Rod bearing seems to be one of the biggest things that people ask about. I have 42,000 miles on it. Am I gonna do rod bearings? Well, if I get above 50, if I get near 60, you know, 65,000, I'll probably think a little more seriously about it. You know, of course I have the later gen, so the aluminum bearings, they say, tend to be more, you know, less of a chance of failure. You never know, and you know, there's lots of people who will you know, naysay the fact that aluminum bearings don't matter, and then of course doing Blackstone tests don't really matter either, because the aluminum don't really show signs of, you know, having an issue. So I don't really plan on doing rod bearings, you know, maybe in several years if I put more mileage on the car. And I think they're a little overhyped, you know, given the fact that it's a very small percentage of cars that have ever had an issue. You know, it's peace of mind, but that's one of the things that everyone asks about, and I just don't feel that worried about it. I actually did a full video on kind of, you know, I did some research and I checked some facts, and I gave my opinion on the rod bearings and when you should change them and when you shouldn't and what you think. So go check that video out. It's, I don't know, like 5 to 7 minutes. I did a really good job. I think I did a good job editing it. I tried really hard, so go check that out if you're interested. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in hearing more about the rod bearings on the M3. Man, it's getting dark. I don't know why. I'm wearing sunglasses still. It's like 6:50 p.m. Okay, so one really quick thing that I like about this car is it's easy to work on. There hasn't been anything so far that I haven't been able to do that I wanted to do. I'm pretty mechanically inclined, but you know, there's always those things, you know, like suspension and stuff that I'm not quite as familiar with. So if I needed to do something like that, you know, maybe I would have a buddy help me or go to a shop where we can use their lift or whatever. But it's easy to work on, you know, it's straightforward. I've taken panels off, I've changed the exhaust. You know, I went to a shop in Columbus, Ohio to do my mid pipe with the test pipes. I did it all myself with a few guys. You know, I didn't just pay someone, we just paid to use the space. So, you know, generally speaking, it's easy to work on. You know, I replaced the Lux lights. I haven't really done a lot of mods to it. Maybe that's why it feels really easy to work on, but you know, the oil change is easy. I'm going to be doing spark plugs soon, which are supposedly okay. You know, there's 8 of them, and you know, they're not always easiest to get to, but it's nothing crazy. You know, it's nothing like an Audi, guys, obviously. So let's talk about one more performance metric here, and that regards the brakes. One of the weakest parts of the car. When I took it to the Smoky Mountains, Tail of the Dragon, I didn't beat the complete crap out of it, but I was pretty hard on it, and there's definitely brake fade that will occur if you are on the brakes constantly. So watch out for that. Upgrade your pads. You know, some guys do the big brake kits if they track their cars. Absolutely would recommend that. I don't really do a ton of aggressive driving. It's more like a little spirited, or I'll go to you know, down south Ohio, Hocking Hills, where there's not really like cars or anything around, so you know, it's safe, and we're only going like 40 through the hills and stuff like that. And also another thing about the brakes that I hate is how bad they dust. This is absolutely the worst brake dust, especially on the front, that I've ever experienced. It's like 2 drives and it looks like brake dust. And I do have a coating on my wheels, which helps, so I can blast it off pretty quickly. But guys, like I'll go to a car show, I've got to pretty much wash my car, or at least wash the wheels that day, or else I've got everyone jumping on me about how dirty my car is. So that sucks. Okay, so the very last thing that I want to talk about is regards to, you know, driving it and people's impressions and how people interact with you. Number one, the blinkers do work, and I do use them. So keep that in mind. That is a disclaimer for me and my car in this video. I'm a good BMW driver, despite what some of you guys may think. I do treat my car well, but I do have fun sometimes. Ooh, look, there's a black M4. Squad goals right there. Anyways, so I've never seen that car, but we'll let him in. Ooh, don't scrape the front. Ooh, buddy. So back to what I was saying about what people think about this car, and car guys know what it is. Car guys like it. I don't think that there's very many people that hate this car, but I will say that there's people, especially in the car community, that probably get annoyed with the E90 M3 guys because they love their cars so much. You know, it's a little older, so it's not the quickest car. The low end torque sucks. And, you know, off the line, it's not that great if you have a manual. You know, with launch control, you don't really have any of that. The dual clutch, it was definitely built for the dual clutch, but you'll have like the guys with, you know, similarly priced cars that are quicker, and they're like, oh, I don't want a slow car. The M3 is slow, and the M3 is not slow. It's just not as fast as, you know, the newer cars, you know, which is kind of what happens with any car that comes out, and then they have new ones that come out that are better. That's kind of the point. So, you know, there's not really much hate against this car. There's really, most of it's love, if not all of it is love, which I can totally relate to. And people in general that aren't car guys or girls or whatever, like on the road, or you know, sometimes I'm washing my car and I'll have like a neighbor walk through, or a random person walking that I don't think is a car person. They're like, dang, that's a nice BMW. Or, you know, they'll kind of look at it. You know, I can tell that people are, you know, because it has the hood bulge, the rear, you know, it's a little wider in the back, she's thicker in the back, and, you know, the fenders are different, and the mirrors are different, the carbon fiber roof. You know, I've had a couple coworkers, they saw me drive by to go park, and they're like, your car looks really sporty. Your car definitely looks different, because I had a white 335, so they're like, they can tell the difference, but they don't know why. They're like, it looks different, but I can't explain it. You know, they know it's different. Not everyone notices it, which is, I think it's kind of cool, and that's why I like it. Is my car is, I'm not gonna say a wolf in sheep's clothing, because it's not like it's super fast, but it doesn't look like it would be loud. But we're sitting, it's idling completely quiet. There's a couple trucks around, and like, what car just did that? It wasn't this one, because it's a basic white M3. It looks pretty much stock, which is funny. I would do some more upgrades, but I don't think it needs it. But I think that's gonna wrap it up, guys. I really had a lot of fun filming this video. It pretty much came out, you know, kind of how I wanted it to. The flow gets difficult sometimes, you know, when you're trying to explain things, what you like about the car, what you don't like about the car, and, you know, you sort of drain on and on. But, you know, I took some notes, I read off of my notes. It was a little bit scripted, but I wanted to have a couple points for you guys to understand why I still love this car. And if you are still watching, please give this a thumbs up. It does really help me, it helps the channel, it gives me your feedback, which I really appreciate, and I couldn't ask for more. You know, I'm putting out content and I like to hear back. So what do you guys think about the M3? Do you have one? I'm sure you're probably a BMW person if you're watching this channel. I do like other cars, but right now I have the M3 and the M5, and I'm definitely doing comparison videos on the two, you know, the two manual V8s that, you know, a lot of people talk about in the BMW community. And I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert. I absolutely like the M3 a lot better than the M5. Maybe it's just my preference, you know, the more sporty, newer car, whatever it happens to be. I'm gonna go into more detail in another video, but right now it looks like it's getting a little dark now, so I think it's gonna end this video. Once again, thank you for watching. Comment below if I missed anything. You know, the miles per gallon is fine. It's 15 to 18. It's not that great, but who cares? You don't buy an M3 for good gas mileage. So with that said, I'm gonna close this video before it gets any darker in here. I apologize for that, and see you guys next time.